Now, Senator Elizabeth Warren lashing out at the world's richest man, a lot smarter than her, Elon Musk, after he called her, quote, Senator Karen during a Twitter rift over tax policy. It started after Musk was named Time Magazine's Person of the Year. He's one of the most interesting people in the country right now, in my view, to which far-left Senator Warren tweeted, quote, let's change the rigged tax code so the person of the year will actually pay taxes and stop freeloading off everyone else. To which Musk responded, you remind me of when I was a kid and my friend's angry mom would just randomly yell at everyone for no reason. Please don't call the manager on me, Senator Karen. And adding, quote, if you open your eyes for 2 seconds, you would realize that I will pay more taxes than any American in history this year. Checkmate Elon Musk. Now, after that response, Warren, well, couldn't let it go, appearing on MSDNC's Joy Reid show to lash out even more. Take a look.
No. The world's richest freeloader evidently has a very thin skin. They head off into outer space and declare how they did this all on their own when they were subsidized by the federal government and subsidized by every waitress and by every public school teacher who paid their taxes. This is wrong. And Elon Musk needs to eat a big dish of that.
Now, in response, Musk wrote, lack of Joy Reid is a lobbyist for Senator Karen. All right, here with reaction. Author of now a New York Times bestseller for such a time as this. Outnumbered co-host Kayleigh McEnany, along with Outkick founder Clay Travis. I find this interesting. You know, I watched the series, The Men That Built America. It's about, you know, the Fords, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, et cetera. And all of them very interesting. And I kind of look at Elon Musk, Kayleigh, as a modern-day version of that. And I would think that someone like Elizabeth Warren, a new Green Deal, you know, climate cultist, would like the fact that he's thinking out of the box, getting new technology. I'm fascinated by what he does and want to see him be successful.
No doubt. I mean, Elon Musk is an American success story. He came to this country, went to college, took out $100,000 in student loans, worked 2 jobs to try and pay it off, and now is a billionaire, paying more taxes, as he noted, than anyone in history. In this year alone, he noted. So, look, I think when you look at wokeism, which is a very powerful drug, this is a man who said, I'm not going to be a billionaire elite. I'm not going to just say what is woke, say what is liberal, say what is expected of me. I'm going to just be me. And he's doing just that, cutting through the noise, holding a powerful senator accountable. He's done the same with Bernie Sanders. I am so impressed by him. And Sean, when you said he's one of the most interesting people in America, I couldn't agree more. Elon Musk pretty much deserves that title at this point.
You know, I mean, he's a fascinating guy, Clay. I watch what he does. I'm amazed by it. Right now, the lifeblood of the world's economy is oil, gas, and coal. If there's new, cheaper energy technology that comes along and he helps develop it, all power to him. He's advancing the human condition. He's gone far already. I'm very interested to see what he does next.
Look, Sean, if he's a freeloader, we need a lot more freeloaders, because here's what he's done. First of all, he immigrated from South Africa, as Kayleigh said, came to school here, made initially money with PayPal, and then decided, you know what, I think I can build rockets better than NASA. And he did it. And then he also thought, hey, you know what? This combustion engine and our overall reliance on oil doesn't make a lot of sense. I would like to develop a new car founded on electricity to help to create some energy independence. And he did it. And in the process, he's become the richest man in the world. And as he rightfully tweeted, he's about to pay more tax than anyone has ever paid in the history of the United States of America. Elon Musk represents everything that America should be about. He's dynamic. He's risk-taking. He's forward-thinking.
Clay, one other thing,
he isn't hamstrung by government. I love him.
And I'm fascinated by the guy. And by the way, he didn't lie about his nationality to get ahead in his career.
Right.
That's a plus in my book.
She stole her, the Pow Wow Chow book, Elizabeth Warren. The irony there is Joy Reid defended Elizabeth Warren by saying that Elon Musk was appropriating, did you see this? The word Karen in his insult with Senator Karen. And she did that to defend Elizabeth Warren, who lied about being a Native American so she could get a law professor job and then stole a recipe for a Native American cookbook called Pow Wow Chow. This is an unbelievable story.
I forgot all about it.
It's amazing.
Kayleigh, you get the last word tonight, and congrats on being New York Times bestseller.
Thank you. And you were instrumental in helping to push for such a time as this. So thank you, Sean. I would just say this. We need more non-politicians in the swamp. I was in the swamp. I happen to work for a non-politician, President Donald J. Trump, the greatest president of our time. We need more people like Elon Musk getting in the game, and he might just be doing that. He's tweeting about Build Back Better. He's very good at branding, lack of Joy Reid, as you noted. So, hey, Elon Musk, you may have a political future. We need more people like you, entrepreneurs, in the swamp. It takes a lot of courage to go there and leave what's comfortable, and he may be doing that.
I don't think Elizabeth Warren understands what risk it takes to build a business. There's a lot of risk, and a lot of people that try fail. And those that are successful ought to be celebrated. And guess what? That money's not hers. And the taxes that he's paying is enormous. And if he did it in another country, he'd save a lot more money. We should be glad we have him here. Thank you both. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.